Hello all. Hopefully this air conditioner noise isn't too much for you. So, got to run some errands today. I'll be going into work tonight. I'm going to be trying to get back to the grind, putting out videos tomorrow, my regular scheduled videos, doing live streams every night. Hardest working man in independent content creation. Working 100-hour weeks, staying up till 4 in the morning, reporting on stuff. Well, reporting's not a good word. Offering my opinions on stuff. So what I wanted to talk about, I got to run a little errand here. Figured I might as well talk to everyone. Is we have a Monmouth poll that came out that shows 54% of people at least support some sort of violence and protesting. A good friend of mine, Tom, doesn't like the way that was worded. He shows another poll that shows 22% support violence and protesting. Regardless of what that number is, this is the same argument we have with political Islam a lot. Yes, the truth is it's a small percentage of people in political Islam that are committing terrorism, but the fact is that there's around 20% of people that support that terrorism, and when you're talking about billions of people, that is a huge number of people supporting it. Similarly, if 22%, if that's the lowest poll we could find of people supporting violence and protesting of a country of 330 million people, I'll leave you figure out that math. I'm not very good at it, but what are we talking about? 40 million, somewhere around there? 40 million people supporting, right? If these polls are accurate. Now, here's the thing. I'm the first person that admits that these polls most of the time have an agenda and they could skew numbers in a manner that they want. So I get that. Right? Don't get me wrong. But that's also jiving with my anecdotal experience too, and just talking with people. I have a lot of friends that are like, no, I support the protest, but they'll downplay the violence or they'll deflect from the violence. You see that happening in the establishment as well, in the mainstream media. But you also see people in the mainstream media and others that are advocating things such as, well, violence, looting isn't really violence. And you had Chris Cuomo say, where does it say in the Constitution that you have to be peaceful when you protest and things like that. Check out the 2 debates I did. I did a debate with a left-winger, Destiny, who's actually a really smart guy, I think, who has terrible positions, and is just, I believe, misinformed. And then you also have the debate I did that was kind of madness with 8 people. I think there was 8 of us on there. Look at how many of them support the violence. I mean, it's crazy. They literally say things like there would be no violence if there weren't police. Every single riot started because a peaceful protest was attacked by police officers. They truly believe that. I might lose you here for a minute. And that's what these people are saying. That's people I'm talking to. It is not a revolution if the establishment agrees with you. When Nike and Chase support your cause, you might. And here's another thing, like if your friend, all lives matter too, but this time lives, politics, moral expert, General Matt, moral expert. General Mattis, what a great man. He thinks that Trump's doing a terrible job with this. Yes, he also thought it was terrible that Trump wanted to bring troops home. So now the left's position, as I've been saying for a long time, the establishment left, they're the pro-war party. Now they cheer on people they used to call war criminals because they're virtue signaling Black Lives Matter. Have any of those people done anything to improve the quality of life for black people? No, but that doesn't matter. As long as you say black aspect of it, the more it allows these people to continue to get away with dividing us and not offering real solutions. Yes, and I love, there's so many people I know on the left, they can't wait to bring out any 1-minute clip that you don't see the beginning or the end of that shows police behaving poorly. I'm with you. I don't mind you bringing that up. That's fine. We should, even in these trying times, hold police accountable. They should be held to a higher standard. I totally agree with that. But it's funny to me that we have to just ignore the same people that ignore anytime the media wants to push a video of one black person being killed by police. Remember, last year, what are we talking about here? What's the numbers? Last year, we had 9 unarmed blacks killed by police. Now, assuming that all of those unarmed people that were killed were unjustifiably murdered, which is a huge leap. I know in at least one of those cases, it was a female black police officer that shot and killed a suspect who was choking her to death, but he was unarmed, so we have to consider that a murder. So even if we consider that, that's 9. The vast majority of other problems, such as, homicides that occur in the black community and things of that nature, they're not talked about. Yes, I know people say, well, we do protest about that. Not to this level. And again, it's the exact same thing that I was talking about with the coronavirus protest. There's an idea of triage. We could have helped the most vulnerable populations. We could have helped people in nursing homes that we knew were most at risk to die for COVID. Instead, we decided to make it about a big issue that had nothing to do. Oh, let's lock down everyone. Let's make sure we're arresting the person that tries to open their hair salon. Let's make sure that we don't allow people to go to the local park with their dog. It's the same situation here. We're focused on a situation that is so specific and hypersexualized that it allows us to cause division amongst everything else. I talk to these people in these debates. I'm like, for God's sakes, there are black people out there saying, kneel before us. Did you see what happened to the mayor of Minneapolis? Everyone said, oh, no one's saying abolish the police. That's not what anyone's saying. That's not what I heard. I heard thousands of people, the mayor of Minneapolis, go out, who's the Justin Trudeau of this country, who's done everything he can to virtue signal to the black community, who's talked about systemic racism every single time he talks about this issue. He goes out to the protest. He stands in solidarity with them. They ask him, will you commit to abolishing the police? He says no. Even though he's for defunding the police to some level, he won't abolish it. And he gets booed out of the protest. Thousands of people find his answer unacceptable, but we still have to pretend. We have to pretend like, oh no, that's not what's going on. Very level-headed voices. The New York Times, that's supposed to be the gold standard in media, said that a Republican senator writing an article that agreed with 58% of this country, that if these riots continue to remain out of control, that perhaps there was a place for the National Guard and military to quell them. Now, you might disagree with that, but the New York Times said that that was violence against their reporters. And so they had to remove it. Yet still, we have to pretend that this is a revolution, that the establishment is against black lives, that this country is systemically racist. We have to keep pretending. How is it that the very people in the levers of power that control these communities that have been Democrat for how long constantly say the same thing? The country's racist, the country's racist. You're the one in positions of power. Do something about it. But they don't. Instead, they just say, oh yeah, the country's so racist. And then they don't do anything. And they keep winning because people say, yay, as long as they say the country's racist, we're accomplishing something. We're not accomplishing anything. You're just causing division. I care about black lives. I do. I absolutely do. 98% of this country agreed that the murder of George Floyd was heinous. Yet that's not enough. You can't just care about black lives. You have to only care about black lives. You can't care about the 89 police officers that were murdered in the line of duty last year. You can't care about white people like Tony Timpa, that was a white man who called the police on himself, who was murdered in a very similar way, and no charges were actually held with the police. No one was actually convicted. And they'll say, yeah, we care about that. We do care about that. But we need to focus on the fact that black lives are specifically targeted by the police. In what way? Do we also then, when we're talking about homicides, only focus on the black community, seeing as how they commit 50% of homicides? Of course not. We want to make the country safer for everyone. In fact, people that would say, I'm only concerned about black homicides, we'd probably say are racist. If Tony Timpa died and people said, white lives matter, this is about police killing a white person, you'd be laughed out of the room. But we have to pretend, well, if police disproportionate, again, we're talking about 9 unarmed black people killed last year. 9. But we have to pretend this is indicative of racism across police forces. We have to have our governor, Tom Wolf, who told us we have to be locked down or tens of thousands of Pennsylvanians will die from a virus. He's actually violating his own order, protesting with people, holding signs that says Blue Lives Matter. And we have to accept that. It's nonsense. I was right about the virus. I was right that the lockdown was a hoax, that it was designed to destroy the middle class and is a power grab for these people in positions of power. I was right that they set death traps up in the nursing homes. I was right about all this, even when it was unpopular. When I was saying this in mid to early March, and people were saying, no. Even Trump supporters were telling me, you're wrong, we need to lock down. I wasn't wrong, I was right. And I'm right about this. The people that are pushing selective stories about black people being murdered by police are intentionally causing division so that we don't come together to realize, despite whatever color we are, that normal Americans who are getting screwed over by the establishment on both sides of the aisle. That's what this is about. And if you're virtue signaling, if you're putting on Facebook, well, I do believe Black Lives Matter, and you have to remember that it's about all lives, not just black lives. Ask yourself, why didn't you say anything when 5,000 plus black people were murdered last year? Why didn't you say a word? Why did you wait until Nike and Amazon and the NFL told you? Are you brave? Is that what it is? All of a sudden you're taking some noble stance because you're agreeing what everyone in positions of power in this culture agrees with? That's fine. You can say it. I don't care. But don't act like you're somehow morally superior. Some people like me have been out there trying to run for Congress. Some people like me have been yelling at the Republican Party, why aren't we in these inner cities doing more? But I'm told I'm a racist because I actually want to focus on real solutions that'll be able to solve this problem. I want to stop creating the racial division. It's nonsense. People say, oh, you only care about black lives when it could be used for your position. That's not true. I immediately came out and was outraged by the death of George Floyd. Immediately. I'm outraged by the homicide. I think it's a national disgrace that we've let cities get out of control to the way they are. I might have a different solution than you, but I'm not racist. I'm not only focusing about black lives when I think it benefits me. I'm willing to go. That's how many people on the right do you see, content creators, that are willing to go on 7-1 and debate people like I did in my last debate that disagree with me? And do so in a polite manner and listen to people and listen to their possible solutions. I care about the problems. I want them solved. But I see what's happening, that we're causing division, that we have the people that are controlling the narrative are doing so strongly that we're actually convincing people, 22% of this country, that violence in these protests is justified. They've convinced people so strongly that they think going to work and actually feeding their family and providing a service to the community should be illegal because it spreads a virus, but tens of thousands of people standing shoulder to shoulder protesting, that's perfectly fine. That's what I see happening. Division, the same old. Pushing selective, and it's just as repugnant when it happens on the other side. It would be repugnant if I took a murder of one black man murdering a white person and saying, see, this proves we need to do something about the black community. It's not that it's repugnant, it's just that it's clearly an agenda. And people would call me out on that. But we have to sit here and pretend that reality doesn't exist. We have to pretend that these inner cities have no agency. Everything that happens wrong in the inner city, it's not because of choices that the people made there. We just have to say racism. I'm not saying it's all their choices. I've told you a million times. You could go back and watch my videos for years. You could go look at my posts. When I talk about, I think some of the greatest Americans in this country are people that came from these inner city communities and were able to succeed and provide for their communities and families. I truly mean that. If I grew up in those communities, I wouldn't have the strength to do that. I know that. I'm weak-willed. Those are some of the best Americans we have. I understand growing up in a community being told you're a victim over and over for generations, and living in systemic poverty in places with high population density where the culture tells you that getting an education is stupid, that instead you should be glorifying gang culture and things like that. I would fail in that culture. So I'm not just blaming their personal choices, but to act like, oh, all these riots were just a result, it's all the police's fault. And oh, all the violence that occurs in these communities, it's just because of racism. And if the police wasn't there, things would go better. It's ridiculous. If I was in charge of these police unions, take a month off across the country. Do it. Take it up. You're right. Let's run the experiment. It's out there now. That's the claim. The protesters in Minneapolis say no police. Give them what they want. Give them a month of it. Give them 2 months of it. See what happens. Maybe I'll be wrong. I highly doubt it, but go ahead. Law enforcement is necessary. Anarchy is never acceptable. Are there always going to be problems with law enforcement? Of course. Should we address all of those problems? Of course. Should they be held to a higher standard? Yes. But we also have to look at the problems in context. Was that situation that happened in Buffalo terrible? Yes. But again, the way it's being spun is that they shoved some old man down brutally. That's not what happened. They pushed him. Should they have? Probably not. He stumbled and tripped and fell backward and broke his head open. I was told, oh, but the cops are all horrible because they didn't stop. That's not true. A cop immediately stops to go down and help him. His buddy cop grabs him and pushes him forward because people are charging, screaming. Not many, but some. What are you supposed to do? We have people out there by the thousands trying to attack cops. 22% of this country says it was okay that they burnt down a police precinct. What are the cops supposed to do in this situation? Hey, we want you to maintain peace and order and clear out all of these sections, but at the same time, don't use any sort of violence, and these people trying to kill you, just act like that's not happening. Now, is that an excuse for these cops? No! There should be an investigation. If they charge them with assault, so be it. Did all of these cops resign because they're bloodthirsty maniacs that want to push old men and break their heads open? No! They resign because they feel that they're not being protected. It's a complicated situation. I understand looking at the situation. I have a friend who I trust is a great moral person on the left that I'm hoping to do a video with where we could actually look at this situation frame by frame and see what's going on. Remember, we don't know what was going on before this. We were I don't know if it's true, but other protesters there were saying that old man was saying his intent was to go out and get harmed by police. Is that true? I don't know. But I'm not even factoring that into my calculus. Just from the footage we could see, is it a bad situation? Yes. Does it prove that all the cops there are bloodthirsty? No. I don't know what it's like to be an officer in a situation where half the country and almost all the people in positions of power are saying that your institution is racist and that it should be defunded and that you're all terrible people and that are covering up or deflecting from the fact that you're being attacked in city after city, that your leaders are out there calling you racist and then demanding at the same time that they call you racist, oh, go out and use force to keep this section clear. I don't know what that's like. But I know this, that I would not blame I do think it was a mistake for the Buffalo officers to resign from the emergency response team. If they wanted to make a statement, they should have resigned as police officers. So I agree with my guest on my radio show yesterday, Joe Peters, that's in law enforcement. You shouldn't, if you're making a moral stand, then resign. Don't say, well, I just refuse to do this job. I agree with that. But it's funny how we're so quick to look at that incident and say, this proves something. But if I show 28 cities burning with people beating the crap out of shopkeeper and killing people, that's not indicative of what's going on at the rest of these protests. That's not indicative. That's just one or two bad people. Don't believe your lying eyes. Trust CNN. Trust MSNBC. They're more interested in talking about how we can blame Trump than actually looking at the violence that's occurring. They're more interested in saying why Trump suggesting that he send someone in like the military to quell this, which again, I don't want to happen. But they're more interested in Trump talking about that than the actual violence itself. Imagine if criminals came in and attacked you and your family, and the media's story wasn't, we think that we're going to criticize how the police wanted to handle this. Instead of even mentioning, by the way, this family was brutalized. Nope, we'll cover that up. We'll just focus on the police angle. That's what we see happening. 22% of a country of 330 million people think that now it's acceptable to use violence of some sort in these protests because the police are systemically racist. Because 9 unarmed black people were killed last year. 9. Over 5,000 blacks died of homicide, primarily at hands of other black people in these communities. The only chance we have of solving that in the immediate nature is to have law enforcement. And the recommendation from person after person is, well, if we had less law enforcement, it would be good. Well, if we completely abolish the police, it would be good. That would solve all these problems. So I say give it to them. That's what I say. I say Trump should say, you're right, we're not sending in the military, we're not sending in the National Guard. You don't get any funding whatsoever. We were arrested if we wanted to open our businesses. If you wanted to go to church, you would be arrested. New York City has announced they will not be charging anyone that's been involved in these protests in an illegal way. None of them. It's the criminalization of the law abiders and the celebration of the lawbreakers. And that is the prevailing orthodoxy with the people with cultural power in our country right now. And people that are virtue signaling, yeah, but Black Lives Matter, that's what we need to focus on. That's fine. I believe most of those people are moral people. They just don't understand how they're part of this division. Yes, Black Lives Matter. Yes, Blue Lives Matter. Yes, all lives matter. To focus on one of those groups, to deflect from the fact that we actually see white people being told that they're born with original sin, that all police are being smeared as disgusting racist, or at least their institution is racist, is a huge mistake. And I know that people watching right now that know me in my personal life know that people we consider reasonable are supporting these riots and violence. I know they know that. And if you don't think that that's problematic, that people that maybe you disagreed with politically, but you wouldn't call extreme, are now all of a sudden supporting some form of violence, you need to really take a long, hard look in the mirror. Because they might get their wish. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to push people so far that they're going to start to fight back. And then you'll see the real violence. I'm doing everything I can to stop that division and actually say we need to focus on the real problems of police brutality. Everyone who wants to show an example of police brutality, I'm willing to listen to. I'm willing to listen to people on the left that say that this country is systemically racist. I'm willing to have that conversation. But I'm against the advocacy of violence. And the fact that that's becoming such a common belief and no one wants to deal with it properly and talk to people on the other side. And the people that I do want to talk with, have them tell me, oh, well, you're just a racist, so I'm not going to listen to you. And I have people, real people in my life that don't want to talk to me now because I point this stuff out. It really shows that there's a problem in this country. But hey, man, Amazon and Nike are right. The protesters in Minneapolis are right. Let's get rid of the police. Not that Amazon and Nike are saying that. But they're right to pay lip service to the movement. This is the counter-revolution. The first revolution we've ever seen pointed downwards to the people. A revolution that says, I support rioting and burning. As long as it's not in my neighborhood. I want riots for the plight of the black man. But please just burn down the black man's community. Oh, and I'm more moral than you if I believe that. Oh, well, are you willing to allow your home to be looted and rioted? Oh, no. I want law enforcement to protect me. But we should get rid of it and defund it in these other areas. Why don't you move to those cities and cheer for your community to be burnt down? Why don't you post your address and leave them come burn your home down? Go ahead, open the doors, leave them come steal your stuff. You believe in systemic racism? You believe that financially that's crushed people that don't look like you? Fine. Wealthy, elite, white person, then why don't you give your money away to these communities? Instead, you'll cheer for their communities to burn down so that you could virtue signal how great you feel? You're not better than me. You're not more moral. I'm willing to have a conversation with you and say, I disagree with you. But when you start to pretend that you're morally superior to me, it's an outrage. And people are getting fed up in this country of being told that they're bad people because they wanted to go to work and feed their family, or being told that they think that this violence is unacceptable, or being told that having pride in this country is somehow not something that we should have. It's ridiculous. We cannot survive a country that is led by people in charge who hate this country. And that's what we're seeing. They believe this country is sinned. They believe it is racist. They want it punished. And so they will deflect, or they'll celebrate, or they'll pretend that these riots aren't existing. They'll pretend that it's okay to have crowds of people shame a mayor who's on their side out of a community because he says, I don't want to abolish the police. They'll pretend that that's totally normal. So, it's a frustrating situation. I hope everyone stays safe. I understand passions get heated. When I'm doing these videos by myself, I understand that I'm getting heated. I understand when I'm posting stuff on Twitter or on Facebook, it sounds like I'm being a jerk. And I am, a lot. But you can see and judge me by who I am when I'm talking to people that disagree with me. Watch the debates I did with this guy named Destiny and the other debate that I just put up with the 7 or 8 people that were on there. Ask yourself, who's being more understanding of the other side? Who's actually willing to have a conversation? And which side's screaming that the other side's morally inept or morally unjustified? I do believe that we need to have a dialogue and reach across people to the other side of the aisle. But there is no dialogue. Philadelphia Inquirer has someone, their main editor, that led to that paper getting a Pulitzer. He puts up an article that says buildings matter too, saying that the rioting and burning down people's businesses and things like that's not justified. He's drummed out, had to resign. The side that wants to censor you, the side that wants to say that you have to agree with us or there can be no conversation, maybe you want to ask yourself why that side pretends to be morally superior. So, well, hey, thanks everyone. I should get these chores taken care of. So I assure you, it's a weird thing. My life personally is going as good as it's ever been while I'm watching this country fall apart. So it's a weird thing to watch happen, but I'm still very concerned about the future of the country, and that's why I do this stuff. So anyways, I hope everyone's safe and having a good day. Thanks for listening, and as always, have a